The Canon PRO-1000 is an amazing printer. It produces velvety, vibrant prints with outstanding quality, and it's perfect for professional artists and photographers. But if you own one, you know the pain of watching your ink levels drop even when you haven't printed anything. I've been using the Canon PRO-1000 for about 3 years now. I print and sell my artwork, and in this video, I'm going to share a few ways to effectively reduce ink usage with this printer, because the ink in this machine is very precious. 1 liter of it usually costs more than 700 euros or $800. But first, to save ink, you have to understand how it works. The PRO-1000 is a pigment ink printer. Pigments are microscopic solid particles suspended in liquid resin. And because they're solids, they have two enemies, gravity and air. If the printer sits inactive, these particles slowly sink to the bottom of the tanks. So the printer occasionally shakes the tanks to remix the ink. The shaking itself doesn't use ink, but it triggers what comes next. Once the ink is well mixed, the printer assumes that the ink sitting at the very tip of the nozzles may have thickened. To prevent nozzle clogging, it fires a small burst of fresh ink into the maintenance tank to prime the printhead. And to avoid wasting that precious ink, we need to know the printer's internal timers. The most well-known one is the 60-hour threshold. If you haven't printed anything for roughly 60 hours, the printer assumes the ink in the nozzles is stale. When you press print, it initiates a cleaning cycle that can use several milliliters of ink across all 12 channels. Now, let's talk about the main topic of this video: how to save ink. I've divided it into 3 parts: maintenance routine and workflow, printer settings, and driver settings. If your printer doesn't have a print job, print a nozzle check pattern every 48 hours. A nozzle check uses a very small amount of ink, but it keeps the nozzles wet and helps prevent heavy cleaning cycles. I've actually made a whole video about this topic. Having said that, even if you use the printer frequently, there is a hard-coded, deep cleaning cycle every few months. This can consume a shocking amount of ink to completely refresh the lines, and unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. Another important tip is to batch your work. If you have multiple prints to make, try to do as many as possible in one session. Why? Because whenever the Canon PRO-1000 starts printing after sitting idle for about a day, it runs a small maintenance routine that sends a bit of ink into the maintenance cartridge. So if you print one sheet every day, that routine happens every day. But if you print everything in one session, the maintenance routine only runs once. Now, let's look at some important settings on the printer itself. You have probably heard this before. Never fully turn this printer off or unplug it. When you cut the power, the printer loses its internal record of when it last performed maintenance. And when you turn it on again, it assumes the worst and runs a heavy cleaning cycle. I personally run mine on a UPS or uninterruptible power supply. If the power in my studio flickers, the printer stays on and keeps its internal memory. So don't press the power button and let the printer stay in sleep mode. Here are the settings I recommend. Go to Various Settings, Device Settings, Energy Saving Settings, set the auto power off to Never, and enable auto power on. I also tape down the thin power cable to the desk. It's a bit weak and loose, and if it jiggles slightly, it can cut the power and trigger an improper shutdown. You want the printer to never lose power. Next, under Device Settings, Auto Maintenance Settings, enable Auto Nozzle Check if you don't print frequently, and disable it if you print often and run nozzle checks on schedule. And lastly, keep system cleaning frequency set to standard. The short setting is only intended for very hot and dry environments. Now let's move on to the computer driver settings. Open Printer Properties or Preferences. In the print quality settings, stick with high or 600 dpi. You may think that highest or 1200 dpi sounds better, but it just doubles the print time and increases ink usage without a visible improvement in most cases. Unless you're printing a very small and highly detailed artwork or photo that someone is going to inspect with a magnifying glass, you won't see any difference at all. Also, always make sure you select the correct media type and size. If you use glossy or semi-glossy papers, go to the Main tab, look for Color Intensity and click the Manual button. Then click Set, Click on the Clear Code tab and change it from Overall to Auto. This ensures that the Chroma optimizer only coats where there is ink. The Overall setting coats the white, unprinted parts of the paper, wasting a lot of ink for no visual gain. If you don't see the Overall option, it's probably because you have selected a matte or fine art paper. The Chroma optimizer is only used on glossy surfaces. Finally, if you want to take this seriously, you should use the Canon Accounting Manager. The software tracks ink usage very precisely, and you can see how much ink each print consumes. This makes it much easier to understand your real printing costs and make better decisions based on actual data. If you want to track your own ink usage, I have included a link to download the Canon Accounting Manager in the description. So those are the main things that helped me reduce ink usage on the Canon PRO-1000. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, ask me in the comments.